So I'm gonna get recording. But yeah, like you said, it's funny because you get in those like loops where you're okay. This day's trash day. This day's recycle day, or whatever, right? And yeah, things sneak up on you on these weeks. One day off or long weekend, stuff like that. We usually go to the store around Tuesday, and it just didn't happen because we went over the weekend, and it was Thursday, and we had to go to the store again. It's just kind of like, man, too. Just kind of throws you off, but not complaining at all.
Nope, no complaints.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody to Ask the Coach. I'm Mike, and that's David in Houston. I'm in Boise, and welcome everybody. This is just a non-judgment or a judgment-free call that you can ask anything you want, health, fitness related. Maybe you can throw around a little nutrition, but that's not really our specialty, so we can help out there as best as we can. But want to open it up real quick. Anyone have any questions? Let's kick it off that way. And questions could be asked either through the chat box or unmute yourself. We're all friends here.
I know not last Thursday, but the Thursday before we went pretty in depth with some training talk. And if we want to do some nutritional talk, we can do that today too. If there's no questions, right off the bat, maybe kind of how you approach nutrition, or if you have any nutritional questions. Obviously, our first thing we're going to say is that we have a registered dietitian on staff. She's here in Houston, and that's a great resource for kind of the in-depth advice that you want on stuff. But I get a lot of questions about nutrition and supplementation and all kinds of stuff like that. So Mike, if you want to start with that, and then I see Christy had a question here. What helps with soreness too? So you can go for either one of those.
I'll kick it off. As far as talking about nutrition, I'm not strict with nutrition. I make sure I get all my fruits and veggies, and I don't really limit myself. Just because I enjoy food. I mean, I kind of anything in moderation approach, although this shutdown time I've had more than just moderate amounts of food, but that's okay because food makes me happy, and stressful times you eat more. So that's my approach. I used to be a lot more strict with my diet when I was younger, and it was just it got to be too much for me. It was taking the fun away from training. There was too much associated guilt if I cheated. There's way too much for me to maintain and just keep on the same. So I just kind of had to let it go, and I've been a lot happier. And I've got a wasp chasing me, so I'm not dancing. Excuse me while I get away from that wasp. Sorry.
The outtakes are my favorite. Man, the outtakes are the best part, because I've been going outside for some of my CubeFit classes, whether it's stretch or strength or anything like that, and the outtakes are so funny. He's running away from a wasp, hopefully not a murder hornet.
I'm just gonna stay right here for a little bit. Yeah, it's flying around. And actually, on today is Thursday. Yesterday, my poor little dog got stung by a wasp out here, and he was pretty sick all day. He's doing better right now, but I'm not a fan of these things, so I sprayed right before I came out, and it's not happy with me. But anyway, going back to what I was talking about. So I don't really follow a firm diet. I eat when I'm hungry. I kind of know what my body wants. Like if I know when I'm wanting protein, I know when I'm wanting some carbohydrates. I can listen to my body. But as far as following a strict guideline, I don't do it. It's just not my style. But same question to you, David. What's your take on all of that?
Yeah, so with everything that we talk about here, it depends on what your goals are and where you're at in life and all that good stuff. I always try to look at it as different factors have a different hierarchy of importance. And I do the same thing with training too. But the number one factor for me before you start getting into those variables and the nuances of nutritional stuff is what's your lifestyle, what's your behavior, what can you make fit, and you have to think about that before you start talking about energy balance or any calorie type of stuff. First, talk about what lifestyle variables you have going on, what time commitments you have, all that good stuff. Always a good place to start, whether you're talking nutrition, fitness, mindset, whatever. So I always kind of start there. And then after that, you can start looking into what your calorie intake is and maybe like monitor how your body weight's changing and stuff like that. I would do that a lot with athletes who had pretty extreme body composition goals, is we have to look at energy balance and how things are changing. So that's the number one thing that we're looking at as far as weight loss or health. You're talking first lifestyle, and then second kind of calories in, calories out, all that kind of stuff. Once you're starting to get kind of into the nitty gritty of stuff, you can start thinking about your macronutrient composition. So we're just talking about fat, carbohydrates, and protein. Obviously, those are the three. And so you can kind of optimize what your body likes, what you like personally, what your preference is. If you're trying to put on strength or put on muscle mass or just eat for health, anything like that, you can manipulate those. And then it gets into those things where, like, if you have your calories and macros and you're just happy as can be with what they are, then that's probably like 80-90% of the equation. Then you start getting into stuff that's more performance related. You look like you're coming right at me.
Oh no, I didn't. He's just upset now. Anyway, sorry.
It's okay. And then you start going into things that are going to make you this much better, like nutrient timing and meal frequency. So talking about like pre-workout, post-workout, feeding windows, how many meals you're eating a day, stuff like that. And then like if you're trying to get 1 or 2% better at something, things like supplementation, that will just give you that little edge. And it's funny because a lot of the times when people ask me about stuff, they're asking about supplements. And I'm like, that's what's going to help you this much. You need to get all these other things taken care of before we start talking about that. So it's kind of that hierarchy for nutrition. That's how I always look at it. And once you have one of those down, then you can kind of move up into the stuff that's, going to help you less and less as you kind of graduate to it. For me personally, when I'm doing like cutting phases, I track my body weight change and I track my calorie consumption using MyFitnessPal. And then when I'm trying to gain weight, gain muscle, I kind of just add from there. Not everybody is that planned out about it, and you don't necessarily have to be. It's just something that I can kind of enjoy and know about. So I have fun with it. I like manipulating things. I do it for my clients. I might as well, kind of practice what I preach there. But that's kind of how I feel about the nutrition stuff. I don't know if anybody has anything to add to that or any questions about that stuff. That was kind of a lot in a condensed version.
You explained it really well. Just curious, when did you start training, David? What age were you, and why?
I started training. You're talking about weight training, because I played sports as a kid, all that stuff. And then I think it was seventh grade. And I realized how much of it, and I didn't want to do it. My dad made me do it. I was like, oh man, I just want to like play basketball or whatever. I didn't want to go lift weights. But then you start seeing little changes, right? You start seeing like, oh, like this body part looks better, or I'm getting better at a certain sport or whatever. When you start seeing those changes and you're stronger than people that you're competing against, then you kind of get hooked. I was in seventh grade. I started early, probably did a lot of things wrong, like everybody does. the good thing was that I started with a trainer, and I listened to most of what he said, but still thought that I knew everything, at that age. But yeah, I started early. What about you?
I was different. I've never been one who just loves exercise. I was an active guy. I mean, I was a biker. I was a swimmer. Always active as a kid. Baseball, some football. Never had any desire to get into a gym until high school football, and I got put in the gym, and it wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy doing it, and I think the thing with me is I never had fun doing it. And that's a point that I have to make for myself right now. If I'm not having fun, I'm not going to do it. Just, I'm not going. It doesn't matter how good it is for me. I'm not going to do it if I'm not having fun with it. And so, that was high school up and into college. College, I started taking it a little bit more seriously. I mean, I'm in the field, I'm studying it. Although I was a physical therapy major, I had a change going into my senior year. So a lot of reasons why I'm not in that field right now, but I'm studying it. I'm like, you need to start practicing this more, dude. So I did, and I do it because I know I need to. I get most out of it when I'm having fun. So that's, there's so many people who just, I don't struggle to exercise, but, I think there's more people who do not enjoy exercise more than people who enjoy exercise. I'm one of those who don't enjoy it. I do it because I know I have to. So I didn't get that early start as a young kid. I didn't have the same, model growing up. My parents never encouraged me to hit it. So it's awesome that your dad was encouraging it while you were a youngster, got you set on the right track. I didn't have that.
Yeah,
So that's kind of my background into it.
it was kind of forcibly, but I'm glad that he did it.
You're going to do this and you're going to enjoy it.
Right, right. You want to get better. You say you want to get better at this or that. This is what you need to do. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, looking back at it, I'm happy about
Oh, absolutely.
that. But yeah, it put me on a good path, and when you're active and kind of getting some of that teenage angst out in a good way, in a productive way, that's a positive thing. Um, but yeah, kind of to go back, yeah. So that's the next thing I was gonna say. Kind of to go back to Christy's question right here. What helps with soreness? It's a lot of those big things that we always talk about. It's gonna be your sleep, how you train, your nutrition. So as somebody who was super sore after Monday's workout and it's kind of slowly dissipating, the things that I've been doing nutritionally is making sure that you have enough protein, one, and that, well, all macronutrients, but I'm going to say protein first because you're breaking down those muscle fibers and you want to make sure that you have the essential amino acids in your diet to kind of rebuild those micro tears in your muscles. um, that's a big thing to know, that when you have that muscle soreness, um, they are tiny tears in the sarcomeres of your muscles, the things that kind of make them contract. So knowing that, doing more exercise is going to be worse for you. If you're trying to train through a bunch of soreness. So making sure that you have those building blocks to get back, making sure you have enough protein, carbs, fat, all that stuff. So making sure you have sound nutritional practices. Also having some movement, moving a little bit, nothing that's really, really tough or overloading, and then getting enough sleep. Making sure that you're getting that 7 to 9 hours or wherever you fall in that spectrum of sleep is gonna help with your soreness. Again, I wish there was like some special supplement that I could give you a link to, and your soreness would be gone, but that's just not how it works.
How about water with soreness?
Oh yeah,
Hydration.
yeah,
Hydration's key.
mhm,
Water
yeah.
check. You knew it was coming. Everyone knew it was coming. Show me the water bottles. See Hannah reaching for one. David, nice. Interesting question though. Talking about when did you start training? I want to open that up for everyone else and see what got you what got you training, and how old were you?
So I guess it kind of depends on what you mean by training. So like David said, I think a lot of us start off as athletes, and that's where it comes from. And Yeah, I did strength training as a cheerleader in college, but I don't think I really got into like training or lifting weights heavy or whatever until after college. Actually, when I became a personal trainer, and I think it was because I needed an outlet. I was done cheering. I didn't have that to train for anymore, so I needed somewhere else to grow. So that's why I love strength training is because there's always room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was, yeah, after school.
I like that. Anyone else? Just a curiosity, just a scientific question. When did you start? And when I say training, it could be anything. It could be like any kind of formalized exercise program, or even in like a non, just not following a specific program, just going to the gym or getting consistent exercise. How old were you when you started?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be weights. It can be cardio training. It can be
Could be,
flexibility training. Any of that
sure.
stuff.
I would say
Um,
training, and I'm very general or broad when I say that. Sorry,
Yeah.
Hannah, go ahead.
Yeah, Hannah.
oh, you're good. For me, obviously, I started gymnastics when I was like 3 years old, and then I had I had a giant elbow injury my freshman year of high school, and that I just still trained in the gym, even though like I was put in unsafe circumstances training with that injury still, even though I had a cast on. So then the next year I tore my ACL, and then it wasn't like safe for me to be in the gymnastics gym anymore due to coaches not believing in injuries. So then I started lifting at this place called Forever Strong, and they had like a knee rehab athlete group, and I thought that was like super awesome. So then I had a group of all these other high school athletes or even some college athletes that also had knee injuries, and they don't do it anymore, sadly. They mostly just train like whole football teams and stuff like that. But it was so weird. Like gymnastics, I was unbelievably strong before that with like doing rope climbs without my legs and all this crazy stuff. And then I went to lifting. And
That's impressive.
it transferred pretty easy. Like I think when I was 15, my 1 rep max on bench was 165, and I was probably like 115. So I remember just always getting so much hype from all the coaches, like, this is crazy. And I just loved it. I was like, I could do crazy stuff at the gymnastics gym and nobody cares, but here I'm getting praised for it. So then I stuck with it, and I definitely saw a lot of body changes just because of like, I was out of gymnastics. So I finally hit puberty, and then lifting as well. And so then going back to gymnastics was super weird because I was like bigger and stronger, but in a different way. So I've always done up and down, because then I went back to gymnastic strength, stopped lifting, and then tore my ACL again, went back to lifting, stopped the gymnastics strength training. So my body was always like going like that until I ended up just training myself before college, and I did both. And then I went to college and found both. And we definitely mostly did lifting instead of gymnastic strength. And I think it's what kept us from getting injured more.
I think that would be a really interesting topic to talk about, because I was talking to a friend who's a soccer player who doesn't quite see the importance of strength training.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm a soccer player. Why do I need to lift weights? I think it would be kind of interesting to see how it all plays a role.
Yeah,
in
my whole team hated it. And I was like the only person at 6 a.m. in the morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm like, woo, let's go. And they all are like, I hate you, Hannah, shut up. But it was crazy. Well, it made our life easier, because if our coach knew we were lifting, then she didn't have to kill us in the gymnastics gym. And we just go into the gymnastics gym, do our routines, and get out of there. And so, I don't know, now I'm figuring out that it's a lot nicer only doing that training instead of the gymnastics training. But
That's interesting how that worked out, though. And man, you should keep with the strength training. You need to do like a powerlifting meet if you're
I
doing
know.
160.
Got those numbers. Absolutely. Go with it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely one of those people that like I'll see changes right away with my strength. And the thing is right now I could not bench that. That was just when I was going to a trainer and doing like a program. And so it's just, I do like being that strong, but this is a topic that I think would be cool if you guys covered, is about like lifting and bulking, because you always see posts and stuff that lifting isn't going to make you bulky. And for me, like, I did bulk up a lot from lifting. And as like a female, you don't always want to be the bulkiest.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of that's a great point, because here's the thing: when you start out doing something and you're training in a really specific way, you're getting all of these neural adaptations before your muscles necessarily hypertrophy and get bigger. They can get stronger pretty quickly, and you can just get better at a certain movement really quickly. And then those are kind of the newbie gains, right? If you start training and you get a lot stronger really quickly, you see that with a lot of young athletes, and they kind of love it. And then after a couple months or a year or 2 years or something, they're not making any progress, because they're not changing how they started to train. And that you can train kind of idiotically at the beginning and still make great progress, because it's a new stimulus that your body's getting, right? But as far as like the bulkiness and the, when I have people that are trying to gain weight, I call it massing, just because the whole bulky thing kind of has a negative connotation. But I think you can control it. And for all natural athletes, most people aren't going to get huge, and it's really tough to. I know a lot of guys that try to get huge and cannot. So it's not just going to magically, like, you're jacked all of a sudden, right? But yeah, I think that's something that we hear from specifically females a lot, that they're like, oh, I want to tone, I don't want to be a bodybuilder or whatever. And that conversation almost always leads to me saying, if you do the right things, it's going to look like tone, because that tone is having a little bit more muscle on your frame. Anything about that, Mike, that you want to add?
No, I would completely agree. Nothing more to add on that.
Okay. Yeah, and from the athletics perspective too, Hannah, it sounded like that you had like a specific way of training and then another specific way of training, and they were two completely different things.
It honestly sucked. Like,
yeah.
Because, well, our coach never really communicated that well with our strength coach. So, like, even though Sunday she'd be like, oh, you guys lifted today, but we won't do conditioning. But a lot of times we'd have a crazy hard lift that did include cardio and stuff, and then we get to practice and we are doing planks again, even though we did them for like 5 hours in the morning.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's huge when you're talking about athletics. Your sport coach and your strength staff have to be in communication. Because if you have too much overlap, that's when injury happens, and then you have to kind of start from scratch. If you're doing like a heavy squat or deadlift day, and then you're doing sprints at practice, then somebody's gonna tear a hammy like that, right? Or pull something. So yeah, that communication line being open is huge for that sport specific training, and then just the general getting your fitness level higher. And that's kind of where the periodization stuff comes in. We talk about different phases of training. In the off season, you need to be training in a completely different way than if you're in season. The volume and intensity is going to be a lot different. And kind of potentiating each phase is something that they have to talk about. So you can get really in depth with that stuff. That's probably not a lot of people's worries. People are just trying to generally be healthier. But for your situation, you would have come out a lot better on both ends if that would have happened.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that conflicting programming when I was at school with different coaches. Strength conditioning coach is saying one thing, but track and field coach is saying, no, that we're not going to do that today. And it works against each other. You've got to have that synchronization. Is that the right word? For optimal performance. I'm a big believer in that. I agree. Anyone else want to share when you started and how you got your start?
was a great topic, though. If we have any other questions or anything that you want to hit.
I have a question about like counting your macros and all that stuff. I've never let myself get into that because I feel like I'm a person that would let it control my life too much. But like now that I'm out of gymnastics and everything, I'm like, oh, this could be something really cool for me to start doing. I'm just scared of like if I go out to eat with my friends, like thinking about everything I order, and I don't know how all that works.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because I think for people that have had any issues with, severe body dysmorphia, or, things like that, where they're getting in their own way, that can be something that you can be really obsessive about. And I think that I've definitely been there, because, when I was competing in physique sport, you're so obsessed with that one thing. But I would say that if you want to have a good quantitative measurement, then that's the best thing to do. And just keep in mind that not to be emotionally attached with those numbers, because it's just that, like, whether it's the scale or your calorie intake or anything like that, it's just feedback, right? But yeah, I use MyFitnessPal. I like it. I'm not, emotionally attached to any of those numbers, and I just kind of make things fit. I'll say this, I use it Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday I kind of have fun. I know about where I'm at. I know my calories are going to be higher, but that's just a part of it, because like I said, first thing I talked about was those lifestyle variables, So yeah, just making sure you don't get obsessive about it. I would say for anybody, it's good to do at least for a short amount of time, at least for like a week or two. And if you find yourself getting kind of obsessive about tracking everything, or like having a weight scale there all the time, then maybe lay off of it. But it gives you a good idea of what your intake is, because I can look at, what I'm eating at any given time and know pretty much what the macros are and what the calories are and stuff like that. So if I'm trying to, go on a trip, or if it's the holidays and I'm just trying to be mindful, it helps out a ton. It's a great tool.
Awesome. Thanks.
Great question. We still have a couple minutes left. Anyone have anything else?
I think going off of the counting your macros or your calories just in general, one thing that Mike and I kind of talked about earlier is I think it should be about how you feel, and you should base what your calorie intake and your macros about how you feel rather than what you look like. So it's more important to chase that I feel good, I feel satisfied, but not too full, rather than, oh, I want a six-pack, so I'm going to starve myself kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
Yeah.
And I think that's good, because those are two very opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Like six pack is super tough, and almost nobody can get that. It's like a part-time job type of deal. And then just not caring at all is a super unhealthy way of, kind of approaching everything too. So finding some balance somewhere in the middle, some of that life balance, just like training, just like anything else, is a really good place to be. Yeah. Probably my last point on that would be, that if you are trying to make some type of change, and let's say that you really kind of got overweight or unhealthy about how you were doing things, it's going to be tough sometimes, and it's not going to be, super comfortable, or you might not feel, if you're dropping calories lower than they've been in a long time, but it's within like a healthy weight loss calorie intake, it probably is not going to be fun for a long time, but you kind of adapt to it. but just like with training, you're gonna have to push it sometimes and know when to pull back a little bit. Awesome. Well, it's 4 o'clock here.
Yeah, those are all really good points. Good stuff today, David. Good info.
Yeah, thanks for the questions and for sharing, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Mike. I'm glad that you killed your wasp.
I think it was just injured. He's been kind of flying around, but no more. He's not in my face like he was to start the call. I was concerned. I thought I might have been the first sting on Zoom.
Oh, no.
I'm sure it's happened by now, right?
Yeah, you don't want that. Yeah, I had to spray this
No.
past week too. But I'm glad you survived. I'm glad everybody joined, and we will be back next Tuesday.
Have a fantastic weekend, everyone.
Yeah, take care, y'all.